Good afternoon. Today we will be focusing on a sample lesson. We will be looking at the Grade 3 Common Core State Standard under Informational Text 3.1, which says ask and answer questions to demonstrate understanding of a text, referring explicitly to the text as the basis for answers. We will be looking at text as well as video and images. Using the CCSS guide for informational text for grades K through 5, under essential questions, there's a couple different focus areas that we could have. One possible area is how can we answer WH questions and support our answers with details from the text. Another might be what information can we gather by looking at an illustration. Sometimes a photograph or an illustration may also allude itself to key ideas and details, as an illustration or a photograph can be thought of as text. The other one is how can we connect illustrations with text. So as we read a text, we will then look at a video as well as a photograph and see if we can connect those with the text. Sometimes this connection can enhance student learning, provide an additional source of meaning, as well as a visual for vocabulary. This article comes from readworks.org. Readworks.org is a free resource for teachers which provides leveled text on Lexile level as well as grade level, and you can search for various subjects and topics. It's a great resource. So today's focus will be Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Some ideas for essential questions or a focus question might be, who was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? What did he do? Or why was he influential? And what made him an American leader? I would read this text aloud to the class, and then after reading it one time through, I would go back and reread each paragraph, highlighting some key and important information. In the first paragraph, I would tell the class some important things. Might be Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is observed on the third Monday of January each year. In the next paragraph, when King was growing up, the laws in some places were unfair. Those laws treated African American people differently from white people. African Americans were not allowed to go to the same schools as white students, and many were also forced to sit in the back of buses. I would turn students' attention to the image or the photograph as well as the caption below that says, King gives I Have a Dream speech to a large crowd in Washington, D.C. And ask students after looking at that photo what they notice and what they might be thinking. In the next paragraph, I would focus on, in the 1950s and 1960s, King worked to change unfair laws. He led peaceful marches and gave many speeches. In 1963, King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. And in the last paragraph, under equal rights, as a result of King's hard work, equal rights laws were passed. Those laws make sure that all Americans are treated fairly and equally. So if they're not really sure what equal rights laws are, I would encourage them to reread that last sentence. Those laws make sure that all Americans are treated fairly and equally. ReadWorks also includes some questions or key questions related to the text for students. There are, I believe, 3 pages of questions where students can answer multiple choice as well as some short answer questions that are related to the text if you should choose to use them. After reading the text, I would show these students this image and I would have a class discussion where I would just ask some questions related to this image to try and deepen their thinking and see if they can gain meaning from what they see. Looking at an image or a photograph is almost like having to read upon itself. There are a lot of details, clues, vocabulary, and key information that you can find just by looking at an image. I would say to the class, turn and talk and see if you can figure out why might these people be holding hands? What is the gentleman doing with his arms out? Who is that gentleman? What are those signs referring to? Look at the facial expressions on the people. How are they feeling? Who are those people in the front? Why are they in the front? After discussing with a partner, you might give these students the sentence frame, "This illustration shows," or "I know this because," where students can provide information from the illustration or the image, as well as connecting information from the text that they had just read. To enhance student learning and deepen their understanding, I would then show students this video, which also comes from readworks.org.
August 28, 1963. 250,000 Americans, black and white, young and old, descend on the nation's capital in a show of solidarity. It was called the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, but it will be remembered as a turning point in the fight for civil rights. Among the speakers, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who electrified the crowd with a stirring "I Have a Dream" speech.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
So to go back to our original essential question or focus question, one idea was, who was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? And you could have students verbally respond, or you can have them provide a written response after taking down some notes or referring back to their text or the image and video. A possible response might be, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. worked to change unfair laws and gave a famous "I Have a Dream" speech. He led peaceful marches and protests for equal rights. Another possible essential or focus question, why was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. an American leader? As a result of his hard work, Martin Luther King Jr. influenced civil rights laws which made sure all Americans were treated fairly and equally. That's huge. Just saying. So to reflect back on the Common Core Standard, we selected 3.1, Ask and answer questions to demonstrate understanding of a text, referring explicitly to the text as the basis for answers. One idea that we had using our CCSS guide for informational text was, what information can we gather by looking at an illustration? Or how can we connect illustrations with text? As far as vocabulary, we looked at a photograph. We also defined key information and details. An example of a low-tech tool would be the sentence frame, "This illustration or this photograph shows," and I know this because. Students could also use their reader's notebook to write down key ideas and details. As far as high-tech tools, display an image on the Promethean board and have students identify key details within the illustration, or in our example, the photograph. Show a video which connects the illustration. We showed a video which connected the illustration as well as text. Listen to an audio recording of a person or event related to illustration. We saw the example of the Martin Luther King March on Washington, as well as a little snippet of the "I Have a Dream" speech. And our resource is readworks.org. I just realized it's not even on here, but you know what? We find new stuff, new tools, and new resources every day. Thank you very much.